for O'Davy.
Help! I'm in a massive pan!
Festive feast on the menu in York on Come Dine With Me at Christmas at 8 tonight, after the Channel 4 news.
Good evening. The trial was often chaotic. The final days remain so too. Conflicting reports all day from Iraq about whether or not Saddam Hussein will be hanged in the next few hours. His death sentence was signed by the Iraqi Prime Minister this afternoon. That paves the way to execution. He's reported to have made his will. However, the US State Department insisted tonight that the former Iraqi dictator was still in American custody. Here's Faisal Islam.
A dictator now on death row. Tonight, Saddam Hussein could be a matter of hours away from an execution by hanging. The judicial process now expired. The timing of his death now the choice of Iraq's politicians. The clock is now running down on the life of the former Iraqi leader. Today his lawyer was asked to collect his belongings. His will's been handed over. The final steps towards his final steps. Saddam's own defence lawyer told Al Jazeera television that the 2-month-old sentence would be carried out on or before the start of the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha tomorrow.
All the indications yesterday during the meeting with President Saddam that they will execute him tomorrow on the first day of the Eid. He said all the shows, everything, through the Americans I met, through the people who are accompanying me from the governments, are indicating that he will be executed tomorrow morning. And I think there will be a video, and they will have a pre-recorded video which might be released tomorrow on the Eid day. And they want it like a sacrifice, you know, for political reasons.
Today, the demonstrations by 2,000 Shia in Basra were nothing to do with Saddam, but against the presence of British forces and for the improvement of public services in the city. But in a country mired in a civil war that today saw another 10 Shia killed by a suicide bomber in a mosque north of Baghdad, the pending execution comes at a delicate time. Under fire, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki said today there will be no review and no delay, but Kurdish politicians want Saddam alive to face a trial for genocide. Splits in Iraq's leadership meant that confusion reigned today, Iraq's foreign minister denying that the execution was imminent.
No, that's not correct. That's not correct. According to my information, this is not the case. What Saddam lawyer said is not accurate.
And there's no real expectation that the execution will alter seriously the job of British or American forces. This bomb crater in Basra, the site of the death of the 127th UK service personnel in Iraq, killed by a roadside bomb yesterday. Yet the people who planted this will also be among the ones cheering hardest at Saddam Hussein's imminent demise. A measure of just what a troubled country this remains.
Faisal Islam reporting there. Now, 4 men accused of key roles in the Rwandan genocide are in custody tonight after Britain brokered a special deal allowing extradition proceedings to take place. Rwanda wants all 4 to be tried for genocide relating to the massacre of up to 1 million Tutsis by rival Hutu militias in 1994. Prosecutors accusing them of organising and facilitating the killings. The men, who all deny the charges, will appear in court again next month. Bridget Nzeku reports.
After a night behind bars, the 4 men were brought to court facing accusations that they played a leading role in the Rwandan genocide of 1994. Until last night, the accused had been living quiet, respectable lives in Manchester, Bedford, London and Walton-on-the-Naze in Essex. Relatives and friends of the defendants refused to comment outside court, but all 4 of the accused men insist they are innocent.
3 of the 4 men appeared in the dock together. At the time of the genocides in Rwanda, they would have been in their 30s. Now in their 50s, 2 are settled in Britain with their wives and children. The 3rd is a failed asylum seeker. Throughout the proceedings, the men listened intently, one clutching a Bible.
Charles Munyaneza arrived in Britain in 1999, settling in Bedford with his family, where he worked as a cleaner. The court heard that he'd been a burgmeister or local mayor heavily involved in the genocide. Celestin Ugirashabuja was refused asylum in May 2005. He was also described in court as a powerful burgmeister. And Vincent Virginia settled in North London with his family. A qualified doctor, he became a British citizen in 2005. It's alleged he oversaw mass killings as a militia commander.
It's important to see justice done, and this is the start of an important process of justice. That genocide, people who commit genocide anywhere in the world should be brought to book and shouldn't be able to get away with it.
The Rwandan genocide of 1994 was a concerted campaign by the majority Hutus to wipe out the minority Tutsi population. Nearly 1 million people were massacred in less than 4 months. People slaughtered in churches, in their homes, and as they tried to flee. The fourth man to appear in court today was Emmanuel Ntezirayo. He is 44 years old and is said to have been another of the burgmeisters.
Lawyers for 2 of the men applied for bail, but District Judge Anthony Evans refused on the grounds that the background of the case, the nature and severity of the charges and possible sentence meant there was a risk all 4 men might try to flee the country.
The men will be back in court in January for the start of extradition proceedings. And if they are extradited, the special arrangement between the British and Rwandan governments means they'll be spared the death penalty.
Bridget and Zeka there. Well, joining me here in the studio, Beata Uwaninka, who is a survivor of the Rwandan genocide and witnessed, in fact, killing of members of her own family. Thanks for being with us. The significance of this, 10, 12 years on from the genocide, is that justice, whether these men are innocent or guilty, is being seen to be done.
Yeah, it's very, very important that it can be done because for survivors it means a lot, and for the whole world it shows that even if you do anything, the world is not going to just watch by and let you go get along with it. And it's a first step to send the message across that you can run but you can't hide, even if you're being accused of genocide or committed genocide anywhere. Anywhere you go, you get caught.
What does it, excuse me, what does it mean for you personally? I mean, you witnessed personally the most appalling things, the unimaginable things.
Yeah, it's something that I can't explain to you, and I don't think on one stage that you can even understand about, because it's beyond what I can say. But coming to live in the UK, I came in 2003, mainly because I got married, but knowing that what you left behind, and then you think that there might be people who live in Britain who are being accused of genocide. Not only that they were on a local level, but high level. It's another sadness, and it's another of how can you do reconciliation? How can you build the reconciliation?
Well, that's the other point. Some people would say if reconciliation is necessary at the heart of it, and Rwanda's seen cycles of killing like this down generations, surely it's time to let bygones be bygones perhaps now and work on reconciliation on the ground, and this won't help. What do you say to that?
I think this can help in a way of rebuilding a country and for the reconciliation, because there can never be reconciliation without justice. And if people can keep getting away with it, that means that never again, it will always be never again after another after another. But this can be saying, whether you did it in Rwanda, whether you do it in Sudan, whether you do it wherever you do it, no one is going to tolerate with it. And especially Britain is not going to take it.
Beata Uwaninka, thank you very much for coming in. Now, a quick look at some of the day's other news stories. In the last few minutes, Sinn Féin has announced that it's calling a special party conference on policing, a sign that it is edging perhaps closer to an historic acceptance of the Northern Ireland Police Service. Party leader Gerry Adams won support from his national executive after 6 hours of talks, and it follows intense negotiations between senior Republicans and the British government. Now, Somalia's Prime Minister has arrived in the capital Mogadishu in an armed convoy and was cheered by hundreds of supporters who lined the streets to welcome him back. However, that welcome wasn't totally universal. In the north of the city, there were angry protests against Ethiopian troops who helped Somali forces drive out the Islamist rivals. Government forces say they've now secured key locations across the city. Hundreds of refugees are fleeing the fighting, and more than 150 people are presumed dead after 2 boats capsized off the coast of Yemen. Here, 2 sailors from an American submarine have died after falling overboard as the vessel left the English coast. Coast Guards were sent to the USS Minneapolis after it got into trouble in Plymouth Sound. 4 crew who'd fallen into the water were taken to hospital, where 2 of them were pronounced dead. Military police are now investigating what happened. The Royal Navy said the submarine had been in Plymouth for rest and recuperation. Storm conditions and gale-force winds are hampering the search after the Morecambe Bay helicopter crash. Coast Guard said air accident investigators could have to wait until next week to look for more wreckage. The bodies of 6 men have now been found in the Irish Sea. The search for the missing passenger Keith Smith is now effectively over. The former heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson has been charged with driving under the influence of drugs and possessing cocaine. Tyson appeared in court in Phoenix, Arizona, where he was remanded in custody until next week. Police said he was arrested earlier this morning after he almost drove into a sheriff's vehicle. The former boxer spent 3 years in jail after being convicted of rape. The government's defended one of its flagship city academies. That's after a Labour MP withdrew her son in protest over the conditions. The Department for Education said Paddington Academy had made a sound start in difficult circumstances, but the former Labour minister Karen Buck said she was moving her child to a nearby comprehensive because she was so appalled, as she put it, at the state of the school. Now then, a noisy celebration rather than a wake. Thousands of people have been singing and dancing outside New York City's historic Apollo Theatre as the coffin of the soul legend James Brown was laid on stage. Brown's body arrived at the theatre in a carriage drawn by 2 white horses drawn through the streets of Harlem. It was followed by hundreds of fans, many chanting his name. Brown's open gold coffin was laid on the stage of the venue where he gave his debut performance half a century ago. It was also the scene of the 1968 performance which made his name. At a ceremony for family and close friends, his longtime associate, the Reverend Al Sharpton, paid tribute to the man who transformed the soundtrack of America.
James Brown just wasn't number one. He changed the beat of music all over the world. So one era had a Bach, and another era had a Beethoven. Well, we had Brown.
A private memorial will be held later tonight in the singer's native state of Georgia. Which brings us to tonight's main news: confusion over the execution of the former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. Some senior Iraqi officials say he could be hanged within hours. The Associated Press is saying Iraqi officials are gathering in Baghdad's Green Zone to set a time for the death sentence to be carried out. However, the US State Department insisted tonight Saddam was still in their custody and hadn't yet been handed over to the Iraqi authorities, a move that would pave the way for his execution. That's it. We're back at 20 to 7 tomorrow night. Till then, that's Channel 4 News. Have a very good evening.
Channel 4 Weather is sponsored by Worcester. Heating and hot water comfort from Natural Energy.
There's some stormy weather in store for us in the next few days. The first of it will cross the north tonight. More storms will affect central and southern areas tomorrow night, and there's yet more time for New Year's Eve. Heavy rain will affect the whole country this evening and tonight, with gales in places. Gusts of around 75 miles per hour may cause some disruption over Northern Ireland and Scotland. Tomorrow will be very blustery with sunny spells and showers. More general rain, though, could bring severe gales for central and southeast England during the evening and night. And more stormy weather will sweep across Britain on New Year's Eve, with the most severe winds targeting Northern Ireland and southern Scotland during the evening.
Channel 4 Weather is sponsored by Worcester, part of the Bosch Group,